Oh my God. You know, at the rate we're living, I got the space heater on. I don't know when this boy going back to school, but it ain't gonna be this week. I'm trying to write about a Trent McDuffie extension possibility, and he keeps wanting to know about more of the historical teams on NBA 2K. And then he wants to play Gran Turismo. And then I got to get him another peanut butter and jelly. How do they? How do they? What's it like, Seth?
Well, wait. Do some people send their kid to public schools?
Wait, do some people have kids?
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Not so bad to have a snow day when your dogs were never going to school. Welcome to Only Weird Games with all the energy you expect for a February 18th edition. I'm Joshua Brisco. I had candy for lunch, and I'm going to go sledding after this. Seth Keysor, he's in Minnesota, and their kids are homeschooled, so this is a pretty easy day for him. It's always snowy. And the man formerly known as Nate Taylor, who I will say crawled into the video stream today, like emerging through his little vertical box to come up and say, "All right, everybody,
Yeah,
let's do a podcast with my kids wherever he is." Where is Hayden indoors right now, Nate?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
then don't worry about him.
I assume he'll be making plenty of appearances in the meantime. It is fun for him to learn that Luka Doncic plays with LeBron James. Yes, that is a real thing. That isn't made up. He now realizes that the Lakers have yet found another cheat code. So,
Can I do a quick quote on that?
Yeah, those are basketball players, Seth.
Yeah, no. I actually paid attention to the NBA for like 15 minutes when that all went down, partly because even I know who Luka is.
Mm-hmm.
And like supposed quote, and I haven't had a chance to look at it, Carrington retweeted it, from Mavericks CEO Rick Welts says he, quote, probably underestimated the reaction, end quote, from Mavs fans. Now, my understanding is that Luka is basically undisputedly one of the best 5 players in the NBA, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right there with DeAndre Ayton, kind of the top of the class.
Sure. So that is kind of funny. So I'm sorry, Nate. So Nate, you're kind of going through it, is what I'm hearing.
Well,
that your child is trapped in the home. You don't have cabin fever. You have my child's in the cabin with me fever.
which I want to acknowledge. I mean, he's 9 years old. He can obviously function on his own. It's not a terrible place to be, right? I have much more sympathy for kids who are 5 and under, or 6 and under, I guess, depending on how many kids you got, all the likes. My wife, as everybody knows, is also pregnant, so add that to the list as well. Yes, I will be making a run for the refilling of groceries in this house tonight.
Yeah, you will.
So pray on my
It's the least you could do. She's growing a human being, Nate.
She's growing a human being. It's thank the Lord it's going well. But
why can't she watch Hayden? What's she so busy doing?
She's trying to manage other people in their careers, Josh.
But Nate, did you tell her that you have a podcast to do?
Yes, I did.
Is she doing a podcast?
Because she, I'm doing a piece for tomorrow. I got a bunch of meetings to set up at the combine. I cannot believe I'm going to be at the combine in a week, less than a week from now. Yeah, I mean,
Combine's in a week?
I know, it's crazy.
less than a week.
Oh, Lord.
So look, by the way, shout out to Martine. I see her in the chat. You know, there's a demarcation of like the world before the Chiefs, lost obviously Super Bowl 59 and a world after. We're clearly living in the afterworld. Thank you, Nate Dogg. I am doing work. I'm trying to keep the house clean, trying to get our finances in order because those Super Bowl expenditures were out there.
Well, at least you had fun.
At least we had fun, kids. I've shoveled my driveway, and now I'm gonna reshovel it the moment this thing stops. Yeah, I mean, obviously making beds. My bed is made today, ladies and gentlemen, because I'm at home. Okay, you do not need to make your own bed at the combine or at any other formative work function where you are operating out of a hotel room.
Can I tell you a fact about my day today that's just gonna really
Sure.
it's gonna put a real divide between the way we're living our lives? I woke up on the couch at like 10 a.m. this morning. It just happened. I feel like I am living some sort of caveman bachelor lifestyle at this point compared to what you are currently doing to just collectively keep your kids alive. Both the two of you.
Both of us, yes. Yeah, yeah. Cravings go in a wild direction, and that's okay. You just have to be prepared for it. You have to manage the salary cap, as I like to tell people. There are multiple things in life that are very similar to the salary cap, and this really helps us, ladies and gentlemen, because I know you're wondering what they're going to do at left tackle, and even I don't know at this point, which should make you feel better and or worse.
If only they had drafted a guy in the second round of the 2024 draft.
Now look, sometimes
He weighs 320 pounds, has long arms, surprising athleticism, and was considered a steal at that part. Well, I suppose after 2 entire games, they probably know everything they need to know about him at the position. Anyway,
you mean the guy who played fewer offensive snaps this year than Carson Steele?
Who wasn't drafted. Let's also acknowledge that too. I don't know what they're going to do at left tackle, guys.
Right.
Look, all I'm trying to say is, your house is like a salary cap in a sense. Your finances, obviously, that's the most, analogy we can get to. Keeping your wife happy. How can I trade picks for happiness now, but mortgage future results in our relationship where I have no chance of competing? You have to consider a lot of things like the salary cap. And when it comes to my son right now, hey man, your dad's smart. Okay, we waited. All right, we could have got 2K at any point, but you know what? We waited and we waited and we waited, and as soon as the NBA All-Star, whatever that was, passes, you see that right there? Price goes down. You know why? Because now we're through the halfway point of the season. They trying to recoup something back. I only had to spend $25 today on NBA 2K. And you know what?
Really?
That is managing the cap at a high level for your 9-year-old who is really starting to understand NBA basketball and has way too much time to play video games because it's a snow globe outside, okay? We have found a solution for this year's cap, and when I say this year, I mean today's cap. He does not have school tomorrow. I don't know how we're going to manage the cap for next year, i.e. tomorrow, Seth, but I got to find a way to do that. Obviously, Holly's ownership, and I got to understand what the funds are, okay? What money do I have to play with to keep everybody sane and happy? And let's not even talk about our wild card of a rookie in Maple who, can you just poop outside? Just that's all we ask. Just all we ask is you poop in that snow.
It was the equivalent of what the Chiefs needed from Mike Caliendo at left guard.
Can you just poop in the snow?
You just, yeah. Well, Nate, we are all thinking about you. These are tough times. These are tough days. But you know what? These are the days that you will one day look back on fondly.
Yes, of course.
And I know I'm not terribly older than you. Well, I am quite a bit older than you. But like in the family making scheme of things, because Jazz and I did not do the thing that you said so many times, as in wait, to have a billion kids. Like, I think by the time I was like 25, I had like 4. I don't know. It was like
a lot of backloaded contracts in the Keysor house.
Yes, yeah.
we are kicking that stuff. I'm not worried about that stuff till 2035, baby.
It looks like the Saints salary cap in there, man.
No,
it's a bloodbath.
A hard rain's gonna fall, man. A hard rain's gonna fall.
This is why Seth has said the salary cap isn't real for so long. It's self-affirming for him. He's hoping that it's not real.
Yes, I'm always like, the salary cap isn't real. But I'll tell you, man, those are good days. They are. Every now and then I'll like look lovingly at my beautiful, exquisitely hot wife, Jazz, and I'll say to her, "Hey, babe," and she'll say, "Yes, darling," or something to that effect. Usually not darling, but insert whatever there. And I'll be like, "Hey, remember all those babies we had in like the first like 5 years of our marriage?" She's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Remember how crazy you got?" And then the conversation goes a direction. But these are good days. You'll laugh about it one day. And so, all the best of luck to you. But yeah,
look, Nate, I'm laughing now. I gotta go ask my GM how we can make $23.09 of salary cap space. Maybe we can cut from groceries or something.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for 2K to go on sale. I had no idea it was going on sale.
I'll tell you kids this: you just wait long enough. Them prices, they gotta fall. They gotta fall. The Tennessee Titans.
Are you the owner of the Are you the owner of the Cincinnati Bengals or something? Yes. I bet it gets cheaper if we just wait a little longer. How much does Jamar Chase want now?
I'll give him the moon.
Can we continue to tell that he should wait? That we should tell Jerry Jones to wait on Micah Parsons? You should just wait on him.
Oh, that's just gonna get.
Those prices gonna fall, Jerry. Don't worry, those prices gonna fall.
Yeah. Actually, okay, I'm sorry, and I know we're going to move on to more official things, but this is one of the best comments I've ever had here from Jake Dennis. Is Seth Howie Roseman where generational prospects fall in his lap? I can't answer that yes or no, but yes. Like, I have done nothing to deserve anything that I have. I am single-handedly out here proving the existence of a benevolent creator. Because it's like, well, if that guy can have it, anyone can have it. And that is so true.
This is like if Dave Gettleman was the GM of the Eagles and had the exact same results.
Yes.
Like, this doesn't seem like it should be happening.
This just doesn't seem fair. It's like, man, I'll tell you one thing. I don't know how the Eagles will ever replace Fletcher Cox. Well, I guess Jalen Carter, the best defensive line. He's a great defensive line prospect, but we're just not going to take him because you know who needs him? The Eagles. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, manna from heaven bestowed the Eagles when it came to here's another terrifying human being.
Yep. No, the Tennessee Titans just decided, hey, we've got a top 5 wide receiver who's a genuine alpha who can win against the best corners in the league. What should we do with him, though? I have an idea. Howie.
Hey, don't ever forget, the moment we make this move on draft night of all nights, we will lose our above average head coach. We will lose him. He will not come back. He will not be through this door. We're going to lose our general manager, our best skill position player, not named Derrick Henry, and we're going to lose our head coach who got us the 1 seed with Ryan Tannehill of all people. So, okay, cool. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, look, this has all been nice and fun, fellas, but I got to go fix the Phoenix Suns here relatively soon. So let's go ahead and take a break now. We'll come back and talk about left tackle.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
It's completely true, by the way, that in the scope of sports video games, I have more fun when I'm looking at text on the screen than I do when I'm looking at game on the screen. I have spent a lot of time building my college football dynasties, another Heisman championship for the Kansas City Opossums, by the way. Nice to have a Kansas City football team finally win something for once.
It's been rough. I've been telling everyone who will listen, It's a pretty tough time to be a Chiefs fan, man.
It's
sometimes they go to the Super Bowl and they lose.
It's heartbreaking.
Oh,
it's so hard. Imagine
they did lose real bad.
They did, and that's by far the worst Chiefs football game I've ever seen, as we talked about after the game. As my Super Bowl hangover was wearing off, I fired up MLB The Show for the first time, building the Royals into something beautiful. I have now gone. I'm in another dynasty in Retro Bowl. Like I really was waiting for 2K. To think, you know what? Let's see if I can do a little rebuild around here. Although I can't live with the Suns' current draft pick situation. But I mention all of that just to say that I really do enjoy this portion of the offseason. It's a lot more fun after a parade and a trophies and all of that. But all of the team building of all of this I find fascinating. And obviously the biggest question right now for what is going to be happening in 2025, I think to have this conversation, we got to go back to week 2 of 2024 and talk about the left tackle position kind of wire to wire. Because now we're at a point where we can look back on where we were at in the Kingsley Suamataia experience and what we said at the time, how we feel like that aged, and now what that informs about where the Chiefs go from here. So obviously, they draft Kingsley. He ends up the starter through training camp. Wanye Morris a little banged up there at times. I've wondered how that impacted things. But I remember, and you guys would have to correct me if I'm wrong about where you guys were at, but when Kingsley got benched in week 2, not terribly surprising, go throw a bandage on and get through the game, win the game, get to week 3. I think that at least as of like Tuesday, we all expected Kingsley to start again in week 3. I certainly did.
I did.
and that was very in character for the Chiefs, very in character for Andy Reid of like we stopped the bleeding here. Let's see where they go. Obviously, Wanye Morris starts in week 3. Kingsley is functionally redshirted by and large after that week 2 baptism in his second NFL game as a raw rookie going up against a technician. These were all reasons we thought he'd play in week 3.
Correct.
With the Super Bowl in the rear view now, the long-term view of that, I don't want to be revisionist and say like, well, if they just would have played Kingsley all year, they still would have gone 15-1 with their starters and they still would have been in the Super Bowl. I don't know that, and obviously the Chiefs don't think that that's true, but I do wonder about that hypothetical now. I wonder about where they were in week 3. I wonder about how close it was. And I wonder about how that reflects on what they see in Kingsley now. Is he their leader in the clubhouse at left tackle for next year? Is he a guard going forward like he played in week 18? Is he ahead or behind Wanye Morris in the depth chart next year? Like he becomes such a fascinating piece. But I don't know how the Chiefs genuinely view him right now. I don't know how I genuinely view him right now. Big umbrella to talk really about Kingsley, Nate.
Yes.
What do you think when you think back on those times? And then what's your feel for where the Chiefs hope that he'll go? Not in an ideal best case scenario, but in an average scenario. What's the plan for Kingsley Suamataia now?
Yeah, I think because you invested a second round pick in him, he probably needs to be playing somewhere next season. So let's just say there's a path A and a path B. Path A is he is your left tackle with the most upside on the roster right now. And if you cannot or are not, let's say you're not willing to spend top dollar for Ronnie Stanley. Let's say you don't love the film of Cam Robinson. Let's say Tyron Smith wants to play elsewhere, not in Kansas City, and you do not want to use future assets, future draft picks, to go up in the first round to draft somebody high in the first round. That's option A. With Wanye Morris still being your projected swing tackle on the depth chart. Option B, and this is where it gets really compelling, I think, Seth. Option B begins with Trey Smith signing a mega contract not for your team. So, do you try to shore up the left tackle spot with a Ronnie Stanley, a DJ Humphries, with a full year in the system, further along from his, rehab from the ACL, already have seen the playbook, already been with the coaching staff. Do you try to maybe get a first round left tackle and you convince Clark Hunt to mortgage future draft pick or two to make a trade, with the understanding that you were trying to strengthen left tackle, but you need to plug somebody into guard, and that somebody, based on talent and investment, could potentially be Kingsley Suamataia.
Seth, I know you have a remarkably small sample size. I'm basically asking you to revisit your BYU film review, I guess, for Kingsley.
Yeah.
But noting the big picture of it all, and we'll go into kind of the draft thing. You had to obviously include Kingsley as a pretty featured part of last year's draft class, and you're right up in the Chief of the North newsletter that people can read along with. But what's your heat check on Kingsley right now? Do any of those options, plan A, plan B, scare you from Nate? Either of them excite you? What do you think?
I think based on what we saw with what happened last year, I think they need to pick a lane before OTAs, before off-season stuff, and just decide, okay, they likely know whether or not they're going to re-sign or Trey Smith.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer to that is almost certainly no. I think they'll try. I think they want to.
They will try, yes. Mm-hmm.
But there's a few things there. There's just a number of issues that come with that, because you've already got Creed, top of market deal, Juwan Taylor, top of market deal. And whether we like that or not, like with Taylor, who's been fine but not great, right? That's, whether you like it or not, it is, okay? And that's the case for this year, not so much next year. You sign Trey to a top of market deal, now suddenly you have 4 of your 5 offensive linemen on top of market deals. You would likely have to just get rid of Joe Thuney outright.
I will say on this, there's going to have to be a cut somewhere. With the drop-off for Thuney and Taylor's deal, they could have Trey Smith's big money start coming in after those deals are off the books, and you have your low first year. Eventually, though, that means you're paying Trey. That means Trey Smith's going to have a $30 million cap hit.
Yes, and so there's things.
It'll be close to like 28, 29 million.
Yeah, and there's always stuff you can do to get around that stuff, but you also have to be realistic about it in terms of the cash budget that they set every year. I'm guessing a lot of that.
Who sets that budget, Seth?
That would be Mr. Clark Hunt, I believe. And so here's one thing I would say. I'm guessing a lot of that cash budget is going to get eaten up with the big fat check they're going to write to Patrick Mahomes when they look and they say $66 million is a lot of money to have on the salary cap. What if instead it were this? But this is all speculation, right? In terms of the film stuff, I don't think they did Kingsley Suamataia any favors with how they handled preseason. I understand they wanted him to win the job, and he looked really solid in preseason. He did a good job in an incredibly small sample size. In hindsight, the best possible thing for him would have been to play every snap of all 3 of those games and just work and see what stuff is there. Then they gave him an incredibly quick hook. He had a pretty mediocre week 1. Like, that was kind of low-key not talked about enough because the offense overall did pretty well. But he didn't play very well. And then, obviously, in week 2, Hendrickson just absolutely baptized him. They gave him the hook, and then they kept him out. And then they didn't put him back in when Morris was hurt later on and clearly laboring. There was just a lot that went into it. So here's the problem. We don't know enough about what he would look like at left tackle at this point because most of his playing time came – there was some emergency playing time at left tackle, which didn't go as badly as some things had gone earlier against a tough Broncos team. Then you've got some snaps at guard. It's still a small sample size. So we're basically still stuck with what we knew about him coming out. Inconsistent hands and feet. Built really well, really solidly, upper and lower body power. Not elite in either, but good in both, which is it's rare. Usually you got to pick one, or you sacrifice athleticism. And in his case, you don't. Good athlete. Do I think he could play right guard? I mean, he did, and he wasn't an embarrassment. He wasn't. So if they know they're going to lose Trey Smith, then it kind of makes sense to, okay, we think you're our right guard of the future. That justifies a second-round pick if he can do it solidly, and then you've got one spot on the line to really worry about in terms of left tackle. So I can see them going that route. What I want them to do, though, is choose. I want them to pick a lane. And if they know right now, okay, we think Trey is probably going to walk, and so if he walks, then what we're going to do, we're going to kick Suamata-Ia to that spot. And then that means that you're already relegating like Hunter Norzad to more of a backup type role.
This is without doing the same thing for Wanye Morris, which is probably on the table.
Right. And that's the thing with Wanye Morris, though. I personally think they probably liked his snaps at right tackle enough to say, hey, this year, Jawan Taylor's got like a $26 million dead cap hit. Next year, it's not close to that.
I agree with you, Seth, but he wasn't active in the playoffs. I know they're doing a little bit of a number game there, but like that just freaks me out. It just throws another wrinkle into it.
Yeah, the entire way that they handled the offensive line situation in the playoffs last year, it all leads to so many questions because they clearly see things so differently than how I see things. Yeah. So I'm much more comfortable saying what I would do than I am trying to predict anything they would do, because I was pretty vocal about what I would do. So what I want for them to do, though, is have a plan and a backup plan, because they had a plan last year, and when that plan didn't work out the way they'd hoped, everything kind of fell apart in a lot of ways. So for me,
Joe Thuney was a backup plan.
That was, yeah.
Joe Thuney was a Trent Williams backup plan, though. Like, to your point, in terms of the reaction of a rebuild. Yeah. It was close on Trent Williams. They don't get Trent Williams. They give Joe Thuney a bunch of money. Like, there was at least a succession there.
Yeah, and it made sense. And Thuney, while it's been a really big contract, and I get all that, in my opinion, he's been worth every penny when you look at what the line overall has done. I personally, if I were the Chiefs, Thuney is, I believe, about to turn 33. Probably, based on how he was playing at guard and how he looked physically down the stretch, no, he's not a tackle. To me, Joe Thuney is a guy that you could say, yeah, he's going to play at a high level for 2 or 3 more years because of the position he plays. So there's things they can do here. Okay, let's extend Joe Thuney. And then that's if you let Trey Smith walk. Because otherwise what you're doing is you're layering problem on problem along the offensive line. And we know they don't want to do that. So to me, if they extend Trey Smith, that probably tells you this is Joe Thuney's last year in Kansas City if he stays in Kansas City, because he doesn't have a big dead cap hit this year. There's so many questions, and they all just affect one after another. But my thing with Suamata-Ia, they need to decide right now, do we want him at tackle to give him another shot there or not?
You think Andy Reid's going to answer that question next week?
Of course
Candidly?
Not to you, but has he answered that to Brett Veach yet? Like, are they on the same page at this point? Because here's the other thing that I'm having a hard time with, and I don't necessarily mean this as either a compliment or an insult, but I have a really hard time imagining Brett Veach talking to us all at training camp and saying, yep, our left tackle next year is going to be either Kingsley Suamata-Ia or Wanye Morris or DJ Humphries. Like, I have a really hard time imagining that there isn't some sort of new face in that mix, given how this went, even though it would be year 2 Kingsley or a training camp of DJ Humphries in the mix or whatever it would be. I'm not opposed to that, but I'm having a hard, if there was a definitive, and this very rarely happens, if there was a definitive top of market, if Trent Williams was hitting free agency now at the age he was whenever they had that original one in before 20 or after 2020, if that guy was available, I would be pretty comfortable just confidently telling everyone, like, no, Brett Veach is going to go give that guy $40 million a year, and we're just not going to talk about left tackle anymore because he's tired of talking about left tackle. But there's not like an easy overpay. And I think that's true for the draft also. Like, you know, you could package some assets and move up. Okay, how far are you getting? And completely straining credulity, the whatever tackle you get at number 5 overall is not guaranteed to have a smooth, productive rookie season. I don't know. I think the lack of obvious outside answers keeps bringing me back to the inside answers, and the inside answers are guys who couldn't get it done this year, at least in their eyes.
Right. It's worth noting that there's no simple answer at via the draft. If you want to, they've taken Kingsley Suamataia is the level of prospect that you should expect to be available at 31. Because I think a lot of people have already forgotten.
That's also the guy you're going to get at 20, right? Like, I mean, that tier cuts off earlier than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, odds are. And I think everyone is forgetting that after the draft last year, the Suamataia pick might have been, other than Jaden Hicks, was probably the highest graded pick they had. Because he was a guy some people thought might sneak into the first round because of his build, because of whatever. My hope is he's finding a private O-line coach to work with some consistency with hands and feet. Because all the traits are there. But if they're going to go that route, they need to go that route. Like, they need to, this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in a veteran. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he's got to earn it, etc. But you got to make the decision and run with it. I just don't know that the outside options at left tackle, you're either going to have to, because Cam Robinson and Ronnie Staley are perfectly solid left tackles. The problem is you're going to have to pay them more.
Correct.
And so it's a tough position to solve for that reason. Now, personally, if you've decided, okay, we are comfortable letting Trey walk, we think we can replace him at right guard, and we think Kingsley's got the goods to do it athletically, size-wise, strength-wise, etc. Well, then sure, you can go that route. Because, in terms of layering the contracts, you can do that. But it's a decision that you've got to make now, and now you're committed to it. Like, I don't want them to sign, Ronnie Stanley and then say, who, by the way, very good pass protection left tackle. Like, you would see a difference in the offense if he stayed healthy.
Well, there you go. And why is he a free agent?
Because he does not always stay healthy.
He very, very rarely stays healthy. Just
right.
Fact of the matter.
And so there's options there, but none of them are easy or simple. And that's what happens when you don't just hit in the draft. And that's tough. I mean, that's part of why, to me, you have to commit now, because the resources you have to throw at left tackle are significant. So let's say they decide we want to solve left tackle in the draft. What that means is that second round pick and both your third round picks are probably gone. That's how far up you got to move to get a left tackle. And even then,
last year Mims went 18th. Like, this is, you can go through and look at your top 20 drafted tackles of the last few draft classes. You're going to find some Pro Bowlers and some guys with really high ceilings, and you're going to find some guys you go, oh, I forgot that he was a top 15 pick. And now 4 years have gone by and he's a backup guard somewhere. Like, the draft is always uncertain on some level. And if you can get the really elite guys, cool. But to your point, Seth, about people were talking about the Kingsley pick after, a guy the Chiefs did trade up for, by the way.
Yep.
Whatever your feelings on Kingsley, the Chiefs did move up for him. So take that to Brett Veach's office if you want.
Because they were concerned that the 49ers, I believe, who they traded up from, were considering Kingsley at guard.
Oh, boy, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So just to give you some perspective, yes.
Patrick Paul went a few picks before that. Right. Roger Rosengarten went the pick before.
And everyone's going to be able to name good tackles, a few at least, that were taken in like the 4th or 5th round. I get that, but good luck winning that way. Like that's a crap.
Even harder.
That is pure luck and incredible offensive line coaching. So my big thing on that with left tackle is they need to pick a lane and go with it. They need to make a decision. So, okay, you offer Trey an amount. I'm just going to, since we're starting to talk about this, because right guard affects left tackle.
Yes.
Trey Smith, awesome football player, is not, based on his skill set and what's most valuable to the Kansas City Chiefs, is not who I would pick for them to pay a top-of-market contract. His pass protection is solid to good, not elite. And I think when you're in an offense like Kansas City's, that just doesn't work. There are other offenses where it does. And he should go somewhere and get paid $25 million a year. He 1,000,000% should do that. And I think that's probably what's going to happen.
This is my last little quick scan of a lesson on the draft thing. I literally just picked a year that was far enough behind us to go back and be able to evaluate. I ended up on 2021, which is fascinating for the guys who are on this list. The first offensive lineman taken is Penei Sewell at 7. That has worked out pretty good for all involved parties. And it felt pretty confident about him going into the draft. Yep. Quarterbacks went 1, 2, 3, and then Pitts, and then Chase, and then Waddle. So Sewell was the first lineman or defensive player to go in that draft, right? Okay. So he's the first lineman off the board. At 13, the Chargers take Rashawn Slater. A very, very good football player. Now, he didn't single-handedly fix both of the tackle positions for years to come because the Chargers just took Joe Alt, and that's a team unit there. So a great player to have, but you wouldn't have wanted to have traded your future firsts to go make that happen. And then the next lineman was Elijah Vera Tucker to the Jets. The next guy listed at tackle was Alex Leatherwood to the Raiders at 17. I remember that
was a bad pick.
I remember that pick being talked about also, like, oh, Raiders gonna Raider. I don't even remember who the GM was at that time. Here's what I'll say.
I think it was Mike Mayock.
That's what I thought too. I thought that was a Mayock era pick. And they were on a freezing cold streak, obviously, that entire time. Alex Leatherwood has at least appeared on the practice squad now of 4 different teams since then, including the Raiders. It's not only is it hard, everyone knows the draft is hard. The thing that I am pushing back against, like big picture at this point for the rest of the offseason, is the idea that a top 15 offensive lineman, with the cost, not even the point here, that a top 15 offensive lineman would solve the Chiefs' left tackle situation, no ifs, ands, or buts. Because what you're going to have to do is watch the very top prospects fall in the top 5, top 10 that you just can't get into. Then, even if you're mortgaging your future, now you are putting all of your eggs in the basket of the 3rd, 4th, or 5th best tackle in the draft.
Yep. And that's incredibly tough to do.
They put a few eggs in the basket of what they thought was the 6th, 7th, or 8th best tackle in the draft last year in Kingsley.
Right. That's where when you're picking at the end of the first round every year, and then the Chiefs will continue to do that, barring like an injury to Mahomes or something crazy, right? That's just how kind of luck of the draw goes to you. And that's why you maybe have to just overpay a little bit for a left tackle and keep swinging for the fences in terms of drafting interior linemen and drafting high ceiling type guys to try to make it work. Now, they paid Creed rather than, funneling through, but a couple things led to that. One, Creed is probably the best player in the league at his position.
He is. There is no probably.
Yeah, and he's not only an elite run blocker, he's an elite pass blocker. He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. He's cerebral. He is the best in the league at his position. And also, he happens to play a position that, commensurate to its impact, it's not that expensive. So he makes sense to pay long term. So it's just funny how when you're talking offensive line, all these dominoes fall together. And that's where, to me, it doesn't make sense to mortgage your entire draft, because I know we're going to talk about the importance of the draft. I think this is the most important draft for the Chiefs since 2022. And they need to do more than just replace left tackle with this draft. If you're looking to...
And the issue is they only have 6 draft picks.
Yep.
Not the 10 going upwards of 12 when you knew they were never picking 12 players. But they had 12 picks once the 2022 draft class started.
Right. And some people are going to say, just real quick, well, then what you should do is tag and trade Trey Smith. The problem with that is teams know that that's all you're trying to do with him. You're probably not going to get much of an offer, and they'll probably just wait you out to the league new year because you'd have to cut him. You'd have to rescind the tag.
Which is why I would advise them to just go ahead and recoup a draft pick by tagging and trading Joshua Uche. Let's take a break.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
That wasn't even a pick from this year's draft. That was a 2026 sixth. We're going to be so confused in April 2026. Holy bleep. Do you remember Joshua Uche? And we're all going to go, no, because he didn't play. Anyway, you mentioned that about the tag, Seth. That sure is curious. We now go to intrepid Chiefs beat reporter Nathaniel Taylor of The Athletic / the New York Times / Only Weird Games to explain to us what may or may not happen in that space. I saw a little bit of of I don't know, a little blue sky solutioneering, a little bit of maybe this, maybe that, maybe this is more likely than we thought regarding the Chiefs' ability to tag Trey Smith. Franchise tag, transition tag. What do those mean, Nate? And what's actually feasible here?
Hey Tucker, are you listening right now? Do you have your hand on the button?
Are you gonna throw in another break? Are you gonna bleep us? What kind of buttons do we have?
Okay. He says okay. Yep, he's here. Okay. The tags do not matter. They will not use tags. All right, let's move to the 2025 importance.
Next topic,
draft.
baby. Fantastic. That made it easy. Okay,
the transition tag is utterly nonsense. I've said it before. The franchise tag is the most diabolical mechanism that NFL owners have to sequester, not sequester, although it's a great word. I love the word sequester. To squeeze, to squash markets for players of a certain caliber. Not all-time greats, but very good players that deserve to be paid.
Yep.
The Chiefs,
and it'll never go away because 90% of the league doesn't care about them.
Which I will die on that hill year after year after year after year. By the way, why do I want to go to your freaking Players Association report card thing next week when you mother bleepers can't even figure out that the fact that I don't know. Have you talked to T. Higgins? Have you talked to him? What's it like? It's terrible. Okay. Why do you keep doing that? There's no other league that allows you to just do that to T. Higgins, to just let you do it, which is why y'all some bozos. Y'all some bozos, and they know it, and I'm here to call you out. They're assholes. Y'all are some bozos, and that's the way it's always been. Let's move on to the importance of the 2025 draft. I don't think they're going to use the track. By the way, I really I do not think. God, it upsets me every year because I try to get people to understand that, like, we'll just use the franchise tag. You live through that. You do it. It's a mechanism that's awful and we shouldn't have it. And it's one of the things I really care most about in terms of the actual business of the silly sport that we all love.
One of these days during the off season, we are going to put on here. I'm going to debate with you why it's actually best for the sport that the franchise tag exists.
No, free agency is what was best for the sport. We have the 1990s to prove that. The franchise
I'll just
tag.
take a day off when you guys want to do that. I think there's no
all the
way
times
you're gonna
Nate
need me.
for all the times Nathaniel Taylor has deliberately and with malicious intent upset me for no reason.
Yeah.
There's got to be one time where I can say, yeah, but what's best for the Shield, Nate?
The Shield?
In fact, I actually might just take a half day now and let you guys just get this out of the way.
The Shield.
I know I don't want any Jimmy Butlers in my Shield, Nate. I don't want players to hold my favorite laundry hostage.
Yet Al Davis looked at Marcus Allen for half a decade and said, you know what? Sorry, kids. Fuck you.
No.
This is Seth. That's Nate's defense mechanism. Okay,
No, I know,
his
that's
defense
fair.
mechanism is cussing in your headphones.
I
and
should have
ruining
known
the
that.
show for
But
all
they really
children.
did. By the way, I love that Al Davis was like, I don't care. This is like you can move the team wherever you want. Yep. You don't have to pay the guy. Nope. You're not even playing him. Nope. How can you keep getting away with this? I'm Al Davis. Sorry, kids, for the history lesson. Sorry, parents, for I hate the franchise tag. It's so stupid. But it's great. It's great for foddering discussions. So look at Seth.
It keeps those discussions. It keeps those discussions up. One thing you got to do, what you got to understand is, I don't know if you've watched a whole lot of Peaky Blinders, but when you've got the masses down, you got to keep that boot to the throat. That's the only way to avoid an uprising. I think there's an argument to be made that it might be best for the sport while acknowledging it is a diabolical mechanism that keeps a boot to the throat. And so I get it.
That helps Jerry Jones make more money is good for Seth.
I like anything that keeps from
working
the
class
bounce of-
down.
Yes,
Oh, yes,
exactly. The
yes,
blue
the
collar
working-
folks.
the working class. Yes, that's the deal. Actually, mine.
My guy was willing to pull himself up
why
from
are
his
you guys out
bootstraps.
here?
Okay, he
You're out
couldn't
here
tell
def-
you where he couldn't decide where he wanted to work. They
players-
told him to work.
The players could get rid of the franchise
tag
tag whenever they wanted.
from his
They just need to do what's best.
Only to then be told he couldn't have agency over his own career.
They just want. None of these guys have agency over their own career. It's called collective bargaining, Nate. The NFLPA could make it go away anytime they want. But you know what? The 85% that don't care about it, they voted. Why do you hate democracy, Nate? Why are you
Democracy?
just obsessed with the 1%ers
I love
of
Paul
NFL
Tagliabue
players?
just like the
Man,
rest of us. Okay.
we
Now, what I
practice
want
squad
to tell
players-
you, Mister, is look. You tell me based on the rules, I get 3 to 4 years of service. Hey, by the way, kind of need that service so you can get that pension, which is
And you
also
cannot negotiate that contract. Really.
diabolical. Hey, you
You can't really negotiate that contract, and we are going to tell you what city you work in. You have 32 options. We're going to tell you which one it is, and then you have to pretty
And
much take
also,
this contract.
By the way,
Man, there's
hey,
a lot. There's a lot of other jobs out there. Pick a different career.
Remember that pension you could have got?
Man, I hate
Sorry,
how
buddy, you
being a
didn't- you
lawyer
didn't
requires
cash
that
your
I
rookie
maintain these CLE
contract.
credits. This is ridiculous that I'm being forced to practice law.
Hey, we're a multi-billion-dollar industry. You want to get your hip replaced? You have better played 4 years. Like what?
Exactly. Well, here's the deal. They want those guys that are clawing and hanging on at the edge of a roster. They want those guys to make an extra $50,000 a year, and that's what gets collectively bargained for.
And to Seth's point, if these players don't like how the NFL does business, they can go to one of these several other high-ranking, sufficient NFL football leagues.
Yes.
that can support
By
their
the
work.
way, hey, by the way,
Absolutely. The world doesn't owe you a job.
Unless you're a billionaire, in which case the
Yes.
world owes you
Yes.
as much as you want.
this
Yeah,
is
Seth
someone
Keysor,
else could
2025.
create it. Someone else could
Incredible
create a
work by-
competing
by-
league.
by
They could see
Seth.
what happens with it. That's how it works. I will say,
Seth
it'll
says
never
the only
change.
real money is oil money. That's where we're at right now.
I would just say
and tech money. Don't forget
they
about
can
the
make
tech.
the franchise tag go away anytime they want.
They really
They
could.
they just
But
got to
they choose
collectively
not to.
bargain for. I can't imagine what the owners
And I'm sure,
would
and
give
Seth,
up
I'm
for
sure,
that.
I'm sure that collective bargaining agreement was done in good faith and with proper amounts of power on both sides.
Yeah,
between
right.
the
It's
billionaires who
it's
can
always
work
a
that job
50-50
forever,
split. Right.
and the 20-somethings that have 3 years to make a little money before their
That's
body
pretty
before they get
that's-
CTE.
That's pretty condescending towards those players. I don't know. I think they're adults who
I think
probably know what they're doing. I don't
20-somethings was
understand why you would
accurate,
think
lawyer
that
boy.
they're
I
just
feel like I
so-
got the facts
I-
right. So
I don't know why. I don't know why we're just thinking that these guys are so incapable of having.
I do think
agency
it
over
makes
themselves.
sense. I do think it makes sense, Seth, that you inherently believe that being a 20-something makes you less valuable. That you would
Right.
use that only in a pejorative sense. That makes
No,
sense.
I'm saying
actually.
your voice
I
is
said
just
it in
as
a
valuable.
complimentary way. You said it as in, well, listen, they're not yet 30 and they don't have 14 kids. What do they know about the human experience?
Right.
No, I'm
Now-
saying they know enough to collectively bargain. You're the one saying, well, how could these guys possibly?
Most of these
prepare?
guys weren't involved in that real process, though. I mean, none of these guys really
None of
were
these
at this
guys
point.
that are actually being affected back when those negotiations were first being.
I'm sure Seth would support a work stoppage, though, to hammer this thing out. I'm
Yeah,
sure Seth
for
would be in the
sure.
front line.
They
Yeah.
can do it if they want. Absolutely, $1 billion
Certainly.
%.
Certainly
So,
would support
billion
that. I would
percent.
love that.
saying
That'd be
is-
great for the newsletter.
Yeah. All I'm saying is
No, you guys would love it because the upper 1% of players, the guys that you guys love, I
Right.
mean, those
The
are the
Dak-
ones
Just say
that
his name.
they
Just say
can
Dak
survive
Prescott.
through
Say
it.
his name.
You-
Just say his name. The Dak Prescott. Yeah. He hates who? He hates you. Not me. He
it's
hates
just, man,
he hates the fact
I'm
that
here
you
for the
want money.
practice squad guy trying to make it, and that's what they're negotiating for.
And
Man.
you want that practice squad guy starting because some of those higher ups decided that this life wasn't for them anymore. They went and got other jobs, and so
they
now
can go
Chris
do that.
Oladokin's the Chiefs QB1.
the best part. in all
I'd
of
watch.
this is realizing that they.
I'll tell you what, Seth. I would not read your film review.
I wouldn't either. The best part is that we just saw the franchise tag.
You don't watch college football. Yeah, I'd watch AAF and Chiefs colors, sure.
We watched. I'm serious, guys. The Bengals are going to, have some reeling effects from this. We saw the Chiefs have some reeling effects from this. The reason why the first topic is called left tackle retrospective is because of the franchise tag.
Yeah.
It is
Because they couldn't find a reasonable solution with Orlando Brown, which meant, hey, well, the most reasonable thing we could do is lock you up for a year. Okay, well, you can play through that, and you don't even need an agent, because why would you need an agent when they're franchise tagging you anyway? That's a whole different discussion for a different day. But also, hey, man, if you can't, everything is about timing. If you cannot come to a timing of when to negotiate a contract with a particular player who has met a certain amount of years of service based on the 2011 collective bargaining agreement that is still ratified to this day, that player should be able to find other suitable options, which is why there's no way, even though it's a different situation, there's really no reason as to why you would use the franchise tag on a right guard. I don't care who that right guard is.
Just to show that you can, Nate.
To exert dominance.
Your power. To exert your dominance.
You clearly have never locked eyes with a stranger who was looking at you eat kind of messily and just...
Clark Hunt will franchise tag Trey Smith while staring down Trent McDuffie.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, yes, Orlando Brown did hire an agent, but this was before that, kids. This is before he hired an agent. The franchise tag was a way of preventing him from realizing what his actual value was on the market,
which he never figured out.
Until 2 years later.
Yeah. You know, I'm telling you,
so it doesn't help the player, which again is why I looked to the Players Association and say, you're bozos. You're bozos. You're idiots. You want your player to find out what he is actually maximized and worth. The only way you can do that is to actually get to the market. Why would you prevent anybody in your union to get to the freaking market?
The only thing Seth cares about maximizing is shareholder value.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you got to think about what's best for the Shield is what's best for everyone, Nathaniel. It creates a bigger pie. And so when there's a bigger...
so much money.
When there's a bigger pie,
he makes more money than Trey Smith will make next year.
Well, no, I definitely think what we've seen with unfettered player power definitely is what's best for a league.
Unions are run in a system that understands how to negotiate these.
I don't think our commenters are engaging in any more good faith than I am right now, Nate. I don't think you need to respond. Like, that flew out the window with me like 10 minutes ago.
Sorry.
I'm just saying things now.
They're not going to use a franchise tag on Trey Smith because that would be, in some ways, irresponsible to both your roster planning and his, again, ability to figure out what his maximum value is if it's not with you. Because you're trying to figure out that other position. And oh, by the way, you would like to re-sign Marquise Brown. You would like to re-sign, I don't know, Charles Abinahue. Will Justin Reed even pick up the phone? I don't know, okay? But you can't do that if you franchise tag Trey Smith because you lock up all that money and you got to restructure some things anyway. We already talked about the Joe Thuney possible extension. We all know that you could just write Patrick Mahomes a check, and essentially it is Clark Hunt deciding how much of that check he wants to write so that he could cash it. In perpetuity. It's in an annuity. Which no one gets that joke. I just want everybody to understand.
Loyal listeners and voyeurs, this is me. I'm raising my hand. I'm just in the back. The ref has made a call and he's pointing. I've just already got my hand up.
They're not going to use the tags. They're not going to use a tag. Which I think should help everybody as to how they want their football.
Except the Shield.
How they want their football team to move forward. Because again, as much as the Chiefs love Trey Smith and they will make concerted, attempted efforts to re-sign him in a contract that is having to be more creative than a traditional contract once he hits free agent market based on how much money he could enter into his bank account upon signing or whatever the per roster game bonuses is per whatever date you are on the roster on this bleepity bleep day. They understood last year, and to Seth's point earlier, that once you made it clear you were franchise tagging L'Jarius Sneed, he was not on your plans. That is different than Orlando Brown because there can only be one left tackle. Yes, you could technically franchise tag L'Jarius Sneed and play him on that tag next season, but that's not fair to him. that's not fair to you. That actually messes up some of your salary cap sheet issues. And so the Chiefs did that because they thought 6 to 8 teams were going to be in the trade-off to drum up as much interest for the services of L'Jarius Sneed, with the understanding that you're going to have to re-sign him to a contract because he was never going to play on the franchise tag. Same thing will happen with Trey Smith. He will probably not play on the franchise tag, even if you were to tag and trade him. Obviously, I hope this is all educational, but we'll tag him so that you can get draft picks. Well, if you tag him, that means you cannot get any free agents. Zilch. Not a one.
You know, that doesn't seem fair to the team. Honestly, they really ought to figure out how to use that franchise tag. They franchise tag a player, it somehow doesn't affect your salary cap. Like, you know, like what's one way we could make it even more sided towards the teams? But I'd like to decide. Sorry, Josh, I don't know what's wrong with me today. Genuinely.
Your internet died out in there and actually helped your comedic timing at one point, which I think was good, the way that all caught up. No, well, so here's where I think justice can be found. I think justice can be found by us officially wrapping up today's edition of Only Weird Games right here. We're nearly at an hour, and both of these bozos, Nate said his two camps from earlier were, you're assholes, you're bozos. I don't know which one of the two of you is which, but you collectively, I think, have earned the title that we made it through 2 topics today, and one of the topics on the rundown, Nate made sure Tucker was quick on the trigger, so we would only spend 30 seconds there.
Move on. Why did you move on, Tucker? I'm sorry.
He did move on, and then he moved back
and then
again
I messed
because
up.
we were still there. So here's what I'm gonna.
Disappointed in you too, Nate.
Yep,
here's what I'm gonna say.
I'll just be
As I sit
curled up in a ball.
As I sit here between or next to Roger Goodell and DeMaurice Smith, who's the NFL PA rep now? It's not him anymore, right?
Doesn't matter. It's the same guy every year, and he
Bozo.
continues to get pantsed.
Bozo. I like pointing at the webcam and calling people bozos this year. I think that's safe for work and powerful. Bozo.
Which is so funny because I do have a lot of admiration and respect and love for people in the Player Association. Yet, as a group, they're I can't help it. They're bozos when it comes to this. Sorry, and a bunch of things too. But that's here nor there. I'm actually about helping people, but what can I do against a cartel of billionaires?
I mean, and Seth's about helping a cartel of billionaires.
Yep.
I'm all about what's best for the Shield, baby.
Seth has a look back that we're not going to get through most of the retrospective of this on today's show, so you can go read it now and then be up to speed for Thursday. Seth has a look back at these last handful of draft classes, how the Chiefs got here, and why it sets up for 2025's draft to be an absolutely massive one for the Chiefs. And I will say, I don't want to give away the whole game because kind of the summary of it, I think, gives us where we want to go. But I think Seth is dead on here about exactly one take he shared today, which is this one in the newsletter. Nothing he said on the podcast. I don't agree with any of that. But the reason that this draft is important and the ways in which this draft will be important, I think are underrated to this point. I think we will properly rate those on Thursday. Plus, Nate is going to have a new piece coming out in The Athletic maybe tomorrow, maybe Thursday, Nate, one of those 2 days.
Hopefully tomorrow, which, I make the argument for trying to actually retain Trey Smith because he's not really part of the problem. But in essence, I also know too that again, you'd have to structure it in a way kind of like Creed Humphrey's deal, where the first 2 years are somewhat manageable. That money is guaranteed so that the player has assurances about that, but you could somewhat manage the cap over the course of again, the first 2 legitimate years of the deal. It's obviously the third and the fourth. I don't know if Trey would go for a 5-year deal. You usually think of these increments in 4-year deals, essentially 4 to 5 year deals. But yeah, there's reasons. I want to make it clear for people too. There's reasons why the Chiefs want to retain Trey Smith. It's just a matter of, can you get to it to where it's close enough that, would Trey consider it compared to X team giving, considerably more, not just in guaranteed dollars upon signing, but also his assurity on the roster for 3 of, say, the 4-year deals or the 5-year deals of that nature. which is somewhat tricky from a team trying to manage to compete both today and in future years with the Kansas City Chiefs, knowing that their quarterback is always going to be making a sizable chunk of the salary cap, in addition to Chris Jones, in addition to people like Trent McDuffie potentially.
So you can read a little more in depth there, a lot more in depth there, in Nate's upcoming piece in The Athletic, and then we'll talk about that. Talk about the to-do list on Thursday, in addition to the importance of this draft, and we'll fully continue to shift into off-season mode and figure out kind of where we're going to head from here. I was briefly worried that we may scrape just under an hour as we began to wrap things up with the topic to spare. We will not have that problem. Our streak lives on. Seth, after having taken the topic away from you, only fairly, I can imagine.
I'm sorry.
It's for the sake of the Shield. No, it's good for only weird games, even though it's personally bad for Seth, and I think he can respect that. So Seth, any parting thoughts to get us out of here? And then Nate, you can officially get us out of here. I completely lost a handle on this show the last 20 minutes or so, which isn't rare or surprising. It's just something I have to acknowledge now.
I would just say, as someone who cares the most about the fans of Only Weird Games, what I care the most about is that they have the best experience possible. So every decision that I make, while I at least include my own personal well-being in it, is made with the weird football in mind, and knowing that even though it didn't benefit me directly, it's what's best for the fans. It's what's best for the listeners, the voyeurs, and because that creates the best product possible for them, I'm okay with it.
And that's why, BJ Kissel, Seth has decided that you can go ahead and pay me his share of this episode every week. And I'll go ahead and put that towards a good use.
For a better product for the fans, I sure would.
I'll be in a better mood, so I'll do a better show. It'll be better for the fans, and we can all agree on that. Nate, if you'd like to also, work, if you'd also like to work for free for the sake of the fans.
It's just I cannot
to be clear. I'm getting money in this situation, no matter what happens. So I'm good, kind of like an NFL owner.
As we are fully into the offseason now, just let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that we care way too much about a silly sport where the ball isn't round and less than like 5 guys a year are restricted to a 1-year salary that is more than any portion of amount of money that most Americans will make. And we have opinions, okay? So it's silly. It is a silly sport. The ball will never be round, because why would it be? It would be less silly. We have great listeners and great fans. Thank you, Mr. Mark Donovan, Seth Keysor. For every, again, Core 9 member.
Pretty good casting. Yeah.
It's Core 9. He is in Core 9, okay? He's not out of the band. He's always going to be in the band, for now, at least in terms of the Core 9. Guys, can someone restrict my salary for double-digit $1 million per year? Can someone tell The Athletic that if you want to keep Nate Taylor, you've got to place they wouldn't call it the franchise tag. They would just call it something more ridiculous than that.
The storyline tag. The narrative tag.
The narrative tag. By placing the narrative tag, he could make upwards of $8 million. You got to do it. I mean, you got to do it. I mean, what are you going to do? What's your 40 time, Nate? Impeccable. That's what it is. So look,
40 words per minute.
Obviously. Especially on deadline, baby. Which is more. Guys, it's okay. Whatever's happening is okay. They are trying very, very hard with the resources they have. It's not our fault that I told y'all that Cooper DeJean is good. I'm going to find a new Cooper DeJean in a few weeks, okay? And you bet not guess he gonna be good too, okay? I don't know who that is. All right, maybe I might go back to the old days. Them old days, Seth, where I think it's time for everybody to just dust off them old tapes, get them ankles right, and let's watch some running back film, because that's what I'm most excited about.
First round draft pick. first round draft pick.
Well, as long as their
RB.
salaries are controlled.